You're listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Joining us today is Brandon Baxter, author of I May Fly. Brandon has been a TV producer, marketing manager, a recruiter, and now an author. Brandon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of this. Thank you.
Well, Brandon, we have to thank you first for being an early supporter of the Author Inside You podcast. You left us a review on Apple Podcasts, and you sent us encouraging messages. So we like to say thank you. And also, it's really cool to think that you were listening to our podcast while you were creating I May Fly. And now it's a reality. How exciting it must feel for you.
It's, I honestly, I feel like I'm flying, honestly.
Yeah.
It's flying high. I tell you, I never imagined that, first of all, that I would ever put pen to paper. It's one of those things where you think about where you'd like to be and the things that you'd like to do. And yeah, listening to the podcast, I mean, it really would get me excited and jazzed up to really put pen to paper. I tell you what, to get to this point where it's actually published and I can see it in front of me I'm beside myself.
That's really cool. So I May Fly is a children's book, right? So what ages is the book aimed for?
Good question. When I'm asked that, I think honestly it's for all ages when you want to consider, just something that's a delightful read. But, when it comes to targeting children, I think it's a great book for moms and dads who want to read to their children, say at bedtime, maybe a great gift for baby showers.
Oh.
But also for children who are learning to read up to probably age 10 at the most, I'd say second to third grade.
Okay.
And tell us about what made you get into writing.
The funny thing is, going back to my years in high school where for whatever reason, I actually excelled at, reading and writing and just, grasping grammar as it is, but I didn't like it. I hated to read. I did not like to read growing up. I couldn't read anything that wasn't a sports magazine.
Right, I understand
that. As I've grown older, and I hesitate to say wiser, but I tell you, probably the biggest influence for me was my years working at Channel 8 and learning to write as a producer and writing with the likes of Danny Coughlin and John Telich, and having an opportunity to work with those guys and writing on a regular basis, really kind of, I think, keep me into where I'm at now, kind of push me to where I'm at this present time.
So being a television producer actually led you to writing a children's book years later.
Who knew, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know in TV they always say, you have to write for, the 6th grade level or the 7th grade level.
Yes.
And here you go.
This is so true.
Perfect experience.
Yes, most definitely. And I will relish that experience forever. It's been a heck of a ride just for me personally over the last, I'd even say 20 years, the many different things I've had my hands in and had a chance to experience, and hopefully, another 20 to 40 more if I play my cards right.
Right. So tell us about coming up with the story of your book.
Several months back, I moved from Lodi, Ohio, up to Cleveland, up into Lakewood, and it was right at the beginning of summer, kind of the tail end of spring, beginning of summer, when the Canadian soldiers, the mayflies, come across the lake. And I can remember specifically, guys, I woke up in the morning to get ready to drive to work. And as I walked out the door of my apartment, I just noticed a wall of these mayflies covering the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you guys are close to the lake, so you know what that's like when you just see them swarm everywhere. And for whatever reason, I got in the car, and after I brushed a few of them off of me, and I'm driving to work, and I just started, no music on in the car, just kind of, thinking to myself. That day was a beautiful morning. And I just started reciting words in my head that kind of played off of the word mayfly. And I actually did that for about a month, honestly. I would drive to work whether it was in the morning or in the evening. And as I was on my way into work, I would just recite these words almost in a rhyme. And finally, about a month later, I sat down in my apartment one morning with a cup of coffee, pulled out a pen and paper, and wrote the book.
Wow.
in one sitting. Really, it just kind of blows my mind the way it kind of came together. I never, would have, expected that. You kind of think when someone's writing something, they're going to experience writer's block and this, that, and the other. And
Right.
I feel like I'm doing something wrong if I'm admitting and saying, yeah, it didn't take me long to write the book at all.
All because of those millions of insects that come out of Lake Erie each spring.
And the fact that they're, and I don't like to say this about my main character, but the fact that the actual insects are so ugly, it kind of, and that'll draw me into a discussion about my illustrator.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Your Mayfly is very, very cute. So tell us, how did you
adorable. Find
your illustrator?
So where I work, there was a coworker of mine that I had been explaining, the process of how I was writing the book and how I wanted it to be a children's book. And really, I wasn't sure if it was going to be just a poem or maybe a book. And I told her I was looking for somebody who could possibly illustrate it. And she started explaining to me that a friend of hers had illustrated a children's book. And she showed me some of her work online. And as I looked it over, I thought, this is very much what I'm imagining as far as the actual artwork itself. And so she introduced me to her friend. Her name is Shannon Lloyd. She's a college student. And, she actually lives in Louisiana. She goes to school in Louisiana. And
so
but she's from the Cleveland area, but she goes to school there, and we talk regularly. I got in touch with her, and I explained to her, I sent her the manuscript for the book, and I explained to her that I was looking for something just childlike, friendly, warm, cute, something that was going to, make, if a child is looking at the pictures, feel, happy and warm and fuzzy. And
sure, and she hit it right on.
Exactly.
She really did. Mayfly is the absolute sweetest little illustration I have ever seen. And crossing my fingers, I think Shannon and I have a lot more ahead of us, too.
Great.
Oh,
it's nice that the collaboration worked so well, and that's a dream come true again.
Definitely. Most definitely.
Is she an art major?
She has worked with, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say Radio Disney in the past. And I believe that she does do graphic arts.
Great. And how was the process of communicating after you told her exactly, that description? How long did it take to get something back? And just so that other people have an idea of how long it would take to get an illustrator to produce something.
Well, in her case, it might be a special case because it's, something where she wasn't able to focus solely on this because of school work and things like that I wouldn't want to take away from her, in her personal life, what she's working on. But when she would have the opportunity, she would send me a couple of illustrations and I would say yay or nay. And, a lot of times it was just simply, if it was a text message while I was at work and, maybe due to the time difference, an hour here or there, we'd be able to conversate about that, maybe on a phone call, brief phone call, email, text, until we got to the point where, okay, this is how we want Mayfly to look, and then we'll go ahead and take it from there.
So she has credit in the book. Is the deal that
absolutely
that you paid her up front, or is she kind of a partner?
And that's a great question, Matt, because in my research, I found that a lot of people, authors of children's books, would pay the artist up front for the work. And then whatever royalties are made off of that, they end up keeping that for themselves. But I honestly wanted something to be a 50-50 partnership with Shannon. And so that's what we've worked out, that, between the book that we have right now and any future illustrations and books that we may come up with, that we'll be able to share in that together. Because
Great.
I think that she has a talent for the illustrations. And hopefully we can make that work, from this point forward.
Yeah, that is a great idea to be able to do that.
Right.
Well, and we even put together a little written agreement so that way, if not to bring legalities into it or anything like that, but just so that way we both know where the other is coming from. We have the opportunity to work together, from Mayfly on, and as I said, hopefully down the road we'll continue to push that forward.
Great. Well, I think you have to have it's probably a smart idea to have something written. So what about editing? Did you have an editing process?
I did send the manuscript to a couple of people that, kind of a second and third set of eyes to look it over just to make sure, did my writing suffice? Was there, were there any grammatical errors or anything like that maybe I didn't see the first couple hundred times I read it over?
Sure.
but really there wasn't a lot to tackle in those terms as far as editing goes. We are currently in the process of trying to get it into print.
Okay, so are you going to have it on print on demand?
That's the plan as of right now. Utilizing Kindle print on demand, because right now Mayfly is available on Amazon Kindle, and then being able to print it on demand. I've actually had quite a few people hit me up already with the opportunity to either read to an elementary school class or go and speak to a library. Or and I don't know if I'm allowed to name drop any certain stores that it might be found in.
Sure, absolutely.
That I've my current real day job is with Target, and I have spoken with a couple of the store team leaders about an opportunity to get it into some Target stores.
Wow, that would be wonderful. That's a very nice break.
So
absolutely.
You can actually get a product in just some Targets and not all Targets? I would think that that's such a big company that they would say, nope, everybody's got the same thing.
Right. You would think, and actually that's what I thought at first, but as I started to figure out, depending on where the Target is located or whatever store it might be, they utilize local vendors. And, if they were utilizing me as a vendor per se, I could probably get it into a handful of Targets in and around Cuyahoga County, Medina County, in northeastern Ohio, or depending on how Mayfly does, if she actually takes off, so to speak, maybe we're talking something a little bit more grand. Of course, that's what everyone hopes for.
Sure.
So we'll take it bit by bit.
Well, that's nice to know about Target, that they also work with local vendors. So that's another nice thing to learn today.
Right. So
they do.
I'm thinking about you reading it to grade school kids when the Mayflies come out in the spring. The kids are probably like, oh my gosh, look at all these bugs. And then you could be right there reading the book saying, oh, as a matter of fact, they're coming out next week.
We're going to make it cute for them.
Right. But that sounds like, you got to work with, you got to
maybe
work
the
when it's in
Science Center.
season.
Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Science Center might be a good place also.
All right, you got to get printing these books.
Yeah.
I'm making notes, guys.
We're so excited for you.
The Science Center. Why didn't I think of that?
Right. But the bookstore there, that's a great place if you can get in.
Sure.
I don't know what's involved in, approaching a museum about getting your book in, but I guess we better find
There's only one way to find out, right?
Exactly. Call and ask them. Exactly.
Well, that's wonderful news that people are already contacting you about coming to read to their school or facility. That's wonderful. It sounds like you really are on a roll, so that's great.
I was so excited about that. And to be honest with you, that actually happened off of just, some very minimal marketing that I've been able to do so far. So off of that, getting the opportunity to do that has me really excited.
So let's talk about the marketing. What have you been doing so far?
It started with Twitter. I haven't been a social media maven maybe as much as I used to. And quite honestly, over the last several years, I had ducked off of Facebook for a little bit and really was just utilizing LinkedIn and Twitter.
Okay.
But Twitter is where I started. And within the first week or so, I had quite a few follows and retweets and a lot of help from local people that I've known that are excited about the book as I am. But where it really actually took off is I jumped back into Facebook, and only so that I could create what is a page for the book and hopefully subsequent books as well. But that's where I've had 3 offers to come and speak with schools. As a matter of fact, on the 28th of February, I'll be going to 2 elementary schools in Columbus. Actually, to read to a couple of elementary school classes.
Well,
so
that's interesting.
Very forward to that.
Columbus is 2 hours away from us, so that is pretty good that they reached out to you, and that's great.
I was shocked. I was shocked and honored.
When we talk about authors, that's what's so exciting, that there's opportunities that you don't even think about that come your way.
Right. I never would have expected that. I mean, I think going into it, when it came to, the marketing aspect of things, and I've had an opportunity to work in marketing in the past, so I understand how some of that works. I'm not claiming to be a specialist in that realm, but when it comes to actually putting that information out there for public consumption, if you will, I really only expected, okay, I'll go to some libraries and maybe I'll hit up my kids' elementary school and maybe a couple of the little local bookstores and see what I can do. Didn't expect, to see so much feedback already. And even just now in our conversation, guys, mentioning the Science Center, I mean, that's something I hadn't considered. And now that, you put that out there, and now my mind is going, okay, well, there's this, that, and the other now that we can look at too.
Right. Well, the mayflies hit the Science Center like no one's business, so it'd be
right.
perfect for them.
It would be.
It will help explain to people not from Cleveland what these...
Right.
Exactly.
What
Yes.
these ugly insects
right.
are all over the sidewalk.
But they're so cute in the book.
Well, there's one that's specifically cute, that's
Yes,
for sure.
yeah.
Right. I see her on the cover.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of advice do you have for other people who are thinking about starting a children's book?
I'll put it this way, Matt. Whether you're starting a children's book or a memoir or a novel or whatever it might be, just start writing. And I'm sure that that's probably what a lot of people say. And there's a lot of truth in that, because I have thought, and even going back for the last couple of years, listening to your podcast, the idea of me writing something, anything, has always been in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And, going from there, I had an opportunity to write briefly for about a year for a Cleveland sports blog that's now defunct. But having that opportunity to write more semi-regularly than what I had been since I left Channel 8 really opened my eyes. And for somebody who is interested in writing a children's book or any other piece, sit down and just start putting pen to paper, because you'll be surprised once you start doing it, once you start seeing the words on paper, how it just kind of flows. And it does. It really does flow from you. It was the coolest feeling I've had, other than my children being born, was just the
so
coolest
nice,
thing was just to sit down and start writing. And then when I was done, look at it and go, huh,
I did
that.
Yeah.
I wrote that.
Those are my
and,
words.
and anybody can really do that. Right. And that's the great thing about your podcast too, is it gives that encouragement to those like myself that could sit there and go, hem and haw about it and say, I'm not really sure if I can do this or not. Just do it. If not for the world to see, do it for yourself.
Right. Just like the Nike ad. Just do it.
Exactly. Right? Yes. Like I said, I'm not the marketing maven that I think I am. I'm pretty sure that one's been used.
Right.
Hey, what about your children? What did they think when they saw the book?
They love it. My daughters, I have twin daughters.
Aww.
They're 5 years old, and Brooklyn and Brianna, and they think that Mayfly is just the cutest.
Aww.
And Benjamin, my son, he's 8 years old, and he's been learning to read over the last couple of years. And when I spend time with my kids, and again, right now it's available on Kindle, I'll pull it up on the tablet, and he and I will read it together. And he's actually, what's really cool, he's actually asked me to help him write a comic book.
Oh,
so we
wow.
started coming up with characters, villains, and heroes, and alter egos. And we started doing this and just putting pen to paper. And it's opened up so many doors that I never thought existed before. And it's just cool to be experiencing it day in and day out.
It sounds like a neat father-son adventure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I hope that, of course, that my daughters pick up on that as well. Because when I was a kid, my sister was a reader. She would read books all day long, all through the summer. That's where she was at and what she was doing. I couldn't pick up a book to read until I was well into my late 30s. So
Yeah.
it's very encouraging to see that out of my children.
Sure.
Right.
Well, you're an inspiration. Hey, Dad did this. I can do this also. So who knows
Right.
where this will lead for your son?
Hopefully that just means that I'm doing something right.
Of course, right.
I think you are. Look at this book.
Thank you.
Well, Brandon, how can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out and contact you?
Oh, a couple different ways. First of all, my email address, and it's bbaxter, so it's BBAXTER, the number 8, at yahoo.com. I'm still one of the few that use Yahoo anymore. I know quite a few have gone to Gmail, but yeah, bbaxter8 at yahoo.com. Always, they can also feel free to hit me up on the Facebook page, which is actually called Stories by Brandon Baxter. There's a message button. You can even go there and, for those who might be interested in buying it on Kindle right now, they can go there and they can buy it off the link on the Facebook page.
Excellent.
And then the other way is Twitter. Of course, I use Twitter quite a bit. It's the Twitter handle is at bbaxter8, just like the Yahoo address, only without the Yahoo.
Okay, great. So we'll put those in our show notes if anybody would like to reach out. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Well, that's interesting about buying it on Facebook. You can just purchase it directly from your. That's a good idea. I don't know if other authors tell us about that.
I just kind of stumbled on it. I'm sure other people probably have figured that out, those who are a little bit more Facebook savvy. But like I said, my first foray back into Facebook in about well over a year. And as I was building the page, it allows you to create a Shop Now button. And when you click on that, it takes you to the Kindle link where you can buy it. And keep an eye on that, because a lot of people, who I've already spoken with, they want that physical copy, and
sure.
As do I. I want to get that in print as soon as possible. They should be able to also purchase that in print when it does become available.
Great. Yeah, we just clicked on the Facebook page and we see that Shop Now button. That is fantastic, right at the top.
That's the one. Yes, yeah. That's the one.
So I hate to say I haven't noticed it on other people's pages. So.
You might be one of the first.
Yes, that's very cool.
Well, good. Let's do some groundbreaking, shall we?
Yes. Well, Brandon Baxter, author of I May Fly, thanks for joining us on the Author Inside You podcast today.
It's been a pleasure, man, Leah. Thanks for having me, guys. So great to talk to you.
Well, that was a lot of fun for us to actually interview someone who listened to the Author Inside You podcast and has now become an author. Congratulations to Brandon again.
And when you get your book published, be sure to reach out to us, and maybe we can have you as a guest too. And until next time,
right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.